For eons, hidden behind the veil of myth and legend, a chilling truth has echoed in silence, only glimpsed by those who dare to look beyond the illusion. Whispers of them have crept through forbidden scrolls and fractured oral traditions, yet modern thought scoffs at the mere mention of their name. They are not myths, not metaphors, but beings of unthinkable magnitude, radiant and terrible. Once exalted in the divine hierarchy, they shattered the laws of heaven itself. In a staggering act of rebellion, they forsook the eternal realm, defied their creator, and descended with purpose, to twist, to defile, and to forge chaos from purity. These are the Watchers. These are the fallen. Their descent was not just a fall from grace, it was an invasion. They came with knowledge forbidden, power unchecked, and intentions shrouded in darkness. They introduced corruption into the bloodstream of humanity, distorted the sacred order, and sowed seeds of war, blood, and despair. Their union with mankind spawned creatures neither man nor angel, hybrids of horror that defied the natural world and became living blasphemies. This primal rebellion wasn't a single moment in time, it was the opening act of an eternal war, a war we are still caught within. And yet, the deeper truths about their rebellion, the magnitude of their betrayal, the true nature of their crimes, and the chilling reach of their manipulation across the centuries, have been buried under layers of denial and distraction. Every effort has been made to reduce them to fairy tales or distant metaphors. But why? What force benefits from your ignorance? What if the stories told in pulpits and classrooms are not complete lies, but carefully edited fragments, stripped of their power and urgency? Ask yourself, who truly controls the flow of knowledge? What spiritual truths have been filtered through the lens of empire, of religion, of control? If you could peel back the layers of this grand deception, would you recognize the battlefield you walk upon every day? These beings, these fallen, have not vanished. They have only changed form. Their influence persists, embedded in culture, politics, ideology. Their ancient rebellion echoes through time, and their mission, to enslave the human spirit, has only grown more refined. This is not simply ancient history. This is not just theology. This is the foundational narrative behind every shadow of evil that lingers in the world. It is the unseen thread connecting ancient myth to modern struggle, spiritual war to psychological manipulation. And until we acknowledge their reality, we remain pawns in their unholy game, blind to the strings being pulled, deaf to the warnings left in the ruins of forgotten civilizations. The time has come to awaken, to look directly at what was hidden, to confront the presence of the fallen, not as distant echoes of a lost past, but as architects of a living nightmare still unfolding. The question is not whether they exist. The question is, can you face what that truth demands of you? Today, we cast aside the sanitized versions and filtered interpretations to descend into the shadowed depths of ancient revelation. We're not here to echo the polished doctrines taught in safe sanctuaries. We're here to expose what was buried, redacted, and systematically erased from public consciousness. What you're about to hear is not a myth, not a parable, but a suppressed reality. A forbidden chronicle of the most dangerous beings ever to interact with mankind. This is the buried truth they never intended for you to uncover, a truth that stretches back to the dawn of creation, yet still bleeds into our present world, shaping not just history, but your very destiny. Today, we uncover their divine origins, expose the vile knowledge they imparted to man, examine the severity of their coming judgment, and most disturbingly, reveal how their ancient agenda is alive, growing, and steadily guiding humanity toward an irreversible confrontation. This isn't just a story about rebellion. It's a cosmic scandal, a celestial coup d'etat that forever altered the structure of both the heavenly realm and our earthly reality. Their fall wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding. It was an intentional rupture in the divine order. They abandoned their sacred posts, infiltrated our world, and spread corruption like a disease. They came not merely to observe, but to dominate, manipulate, and propagate a lineage that was never meant to exist. And this heinous act is not hidden. It's encoded within the most ancient scriptures, waiting for those willing to see beyond the veil of tradition. To truly grasp the magnitude of this spiritual crime, we must return to the very beginning, to the moment the heavens trembled and the earth was forever changed. Their rebellion wasn't some abstract notion of sin. It was an open revolt against the throne of God. It was cosmic warfare, and its echoes are preserved in obscure scrolls and apocryphal writings that have long been cast out by mainstream theology, dismissed as folklore or myth. But the Book of Enoch, Jubilees, and other ancient texts hidden and ridiculed, paint a far more detailed and terrifying picture. But even within the accepted canon, there exists a crack through which the truth still bleeds. Genesis 6:1-4, a mere handful of verses, contains within it the seed of revelation. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful. A simple phrase, yet beneath it lies a shattering disclosure. These sons of God were not men. They were divine beings, watchers, guardians, who saw, desired, and took. And from this unholy union came beings known by many names: giants, Nephilim, titans of destruction, hybrids that defied God's creation. These were not the offspring of love, but of spiritual defilement, and their presence corrupted the very DNA of humanity. This was the moment heaven and earth collided, and what followed was not just devastation, but an irreversible twist in the fate of mankind. The world was never the same, and neither are we. Genesis 6:1-4 offers a brief yet explosive window into a long-suppressed reality. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. What sounds like a cryptic myth is, in truth, a coded message, a glimpse into an ancient transgression that shattered the boundaries between heaven and earth. For centuries, scholars have debated the identity of these sons of God, but the oldest and clearest interpretation, confirmed by apocryphal texts like the Book of Enoch, reveals a sobering truth. These were not humans. They were watchers, a powerful order of angels tasked with maintaining the divine balance between realms. Instead, they crossed the line they were created to guard. Their descent was not accidental, it was willful, and it was driven by lust. Lust not just for beauty, but for domination. They violated their nature, their calling, and God's design by taking human wives and producing a forbidden offspring. The Book of Enoch sheds blinding light on this buried truth, naming the leader of this rebellion as Semyaza. Alongside him stood other powerful watchers, Azazel, Armaros, Gadriel, Kokabel, who, together, made a dark pact atop Mount Hermon. There, bound by oath, they agreed to corrupt what was pure and interfere with the Creator's plan. This wasn't just disobedience, it was war against heaven's order. They knew the consequences. They chose corruption, and they brought with them knowledge that humanity was never meant to possess, knowledge that would twist, pervert, and enslave. This was the true origin of the fallen, not cast down for pride alone, but condemned for choosing contamination, for birthing monstrosities that blurred the line between the divine and the damned. Their actions triggered a divine response so severe that it wiped nearly all of creation in a flood of judgment. But their legacy, it didn't drown. It lives on. The fallen angels' descent was not just physical, it was ideological. Their union with human women was only the opening act in a larger plan to fracture creation at its core. According to the Book of Enoch, once they embedded themselves in the human realm, these watchers became the architects of a forbidden education. They unveiled secrets never meant for mankind, divine knowledge twisted into dark tools of corruption. What followed was a spiritual and moral collapse unlike anything the earth had seen. This isn't just ancient myth, it's the buried blueprint of how evil took root and flourished among us. Each of the Watchers brought a specific branch of forbidden knowledge, carefully chosen to infect and manipulate. They didn't just teach, they corrupted. They turned what could have been neutral understanding into weapons of seduction, deception, and destruction. Humanity, unprepared and unaware, embraced these revelations, mistaking corruption for wisdom. Azazel, perhaps the most infamous among them, gave men the secrets of metal and fire, teaching them to forge weapons of war and ornaments of pride. What began as craftsmanship became conquest. Tools of survival became tools of slaughter. He also revealed how to enhance physical beauty, introducing cosmetics and adornments that fueled vanity and seduction. Through him, outward appearance began to outweigh inner truth. Semyaza, their leader, imparted forbidden spells and enchantments, leading people to trust in sorcery over divine guidance. His knowledge unchained a flood of occult practices, binding generations in spiritual deception. Magic replaced prayer. Spells replaced repentance. Armaros revealed how to cast and break enchantments, pulling humanity deeper into cycles of dependence on the dark arts. The people no longer cried out to heaven, they turned to rituals and manipulation. Gadriel, whose name echoes across old texts, unveiled the very craft of killing. He taught how to wield weapons with precision, how to end life efficiently. Murder became a method, violence became culture. Barakel turned eyes from the Creator to the creation. He taught the stars, astrology, the manipulation of destinies through celestial observation. Humanity began to worship what was made instead of who made it. Penemu introduced the art of writing, but instead of recording truth, this gift quickly devolved into lies, false histories, and manipulation. Words became weapons, script turned into a shroud. And Kasia? He gave the knowledge of pigments, cosmetics not for beauty, but for seduction. Through him, lust was amplified, and women were molded into tools of temptation, altering the very dynamics of purity and desire. The fallout from the Watchers' betrayal wasn't just spiritual, it infected every dimension of human civilization. The forbidden knowledge they poured into the world acted like a virus, warping everything it touched. Violence erupted, sorcery spread like wildfire, and idolatry consumed the hearts of men. The moral compass of humanity shattered, and the earth became a place of lawlessness and despair. But the most terrifying consequence of their transgression was the Nephilim, their monstrous offspring. These were not merely tall men or ancient warriors. The Nephilim were grotesque hybrids, born of angels and women, their DNA a blasphemous fusion that defied creation itself. With immense strength and unnatural appetites, they quickly devoured the world's resources, then turned on mankind. Their hunger knew no limits. They slaughtered, consumed, and ruled through terror. Blood filled the soil. The cries of the innocent reached the heavens. Humanity, made in God's image, was being systematically erased by beings born of rebellion. The earth itself groaned beneath the weight of corruption. This was not just moral decay, it was total spiritual collapse. A world created in harmony had become a playground of chaos and depravity. The Watchers stood at the center, watching with satisfaction as their teachings led to devastation. They believed they had overthrown the divine order, that their influence had permanently rewritten the destiny of creation. But heaven did not remain silent. The rebellion was seen, the crimes were counted. Judgment was coming, and it would be swift. God unleashed a punishment that shattered the illusion of the Watchers' invincibility. The Great Flood was not just a natural disaster, it was a divine reset, a surgical purge of corrupted bloodlines and wicked knowledge. The Nephilim were destroyed. The Watchers were bound, imprisoned in utter darkness, awaiting final judgment. Their once glorious forms were reduced to shackled spirits, cursed to watch history unfold without their direct hand. Yet here lies the darkest truth of all. Though their bodies were chained, their influence endured. Their ideology, their teachings, their corruption, these never drowned. They mutated, went underground and found new vessels. Their legacy continued, reborn in secret societies, hidden doctrines, and dark spiritual forces still at work today. The war did not end with the flood. It only changed form. The loyal angels, those who remained steadfast in their devotion to the Creator, did not passively observe the descent of the Watchers and the chaos that followed. Warriors of divine justice like Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel stood horrified at the desecration of creation. They lifted their voices to the Almighty, pleading not only for judgment, but for the restoration of divine order. Their cries were not ignored. Heaven responded with force, precision, and a decree that would echo throughout the rest of time. The rebellion would be punished, and righteousness would be upheld. The punishment was absolute. Semyaza, Azazel, and the rest of the leading watchers were seized. No earthly power could restrain them, but the heavenly host, by the authority of God himself, bound them in chains forged beyond the material plane. Unbreakable, inescapable, eternal. They were cast into the abyss, a place of unspeakable darkness and torment, cut off from all light, all freedom, and all hope. Azazel, in particular, is described in the Book of Enoch as being bound hand and foot, hurled into a desolate wasteland named Dudael. There, sharp stones and utter darkness enshroud him, awaiting the flames of final judgment. This is a crucial truth hidden beneath layers of theological ambiguity. These particular angels, the chief architects of rebellion, are not among us. They are imprisoned, awaiting the ultimate reckoning. The common idea of fallen angels freely walking the earth often misses this detail. The worst offenders are locked away, reserved for the day of judgment, their doom sealed by divine decree. As for the Nephilim, their annihilation was swift and unrelenting. The great flood was not merely divine wrath, it was surgical purification. It wiped away the taint that threatened to destroy all of mankind. These hybrids, born of forbidden union, were erased from the face of the earth. Their bodies drowned, their monuments crumbled. Their reign of terror was swept away by divine waters. But this is where the buried truth becomes even more disturbing. Though their physical forms were destroyed, the spirits of the Nephilim could not ascend, nor could they return to the dust. Their very nature, part angel, part human, condemned them to a spiritual limbo. Rejected by heaven and disjointed from earth, their disembodied spirits became something else entirely. These restless, malevolent entities began to wander, driven by insatiable rage and endless hunger. The ancients knew them. The scriptures allude to them, and many traditions describe them by a darker name, demons. These disembodied Nephilim spirits became the very forces of oppression, temptation, and torment that still plague humanity today. Unlike the imprisoned watchers, these spirits roam freely, haunting, whispering, manipulating from the shadows. Their hatred for mankind is not just born of corruption, it is born of loss. They are remnants of a failed rebellion, condemned to wander a world that rejected them, desperately seeking new vessels, new influence, and ultimately, revenge. This is the unspoken legacy of the fallen, not just a war in the heavens, but an enduring, invisible war against every soul on earth. They did not vanish. They did not find rest. Instead, the spirits of the Nephilim, spawned from the unholy union of angels and humans, were cursed to roam the earth, stripped of their monstrous bodies, but not their hatred. These spirits became the very demons that haunt the pages of Scripture, terrorize the accounts of the ancient world, and infest the lives of countless souls even now. What began as flesh and blood monstrosities has endured as invisible agents of chaos, corruption, and destruction. The Book of Enoch, chapter 15, delivers this haunting revelation with unflinching clarity. Now the giants, who are born of the Spirit and of the flesh, shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and the spirits of the giants, which afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. They eat no food, nor are they thirsty, and are invisible. These aren't vague metaphors or symbolic references. They are the literal offspring of an ancient rebellion, condemned, embittered, and endlessly hostile toward humanity. These evil spirits are the foot soldiers in a war most are too blind to see, a war waged in the shadows of our reality. They are the whisper behind your fear, the oppression in your silence, the deception woven into your doubt. They infiltrate culture, corrupt systems, manipulate through ideologies, and fuel sin. This is why the Apostle Paul writes in Ephesians 6:12, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." These demonic forces, born from ancient defiance, are still at work, relentless, strategic, and wholly invested in the destruction of human souls. And yet, even this spiritual onslaught is just one phase of a much larger and more terrifying reality. The words of Jesus in Matthew 24:37 were not poetic flourishes. They were a harrowing warning. But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. To understand this prophecy is to understand that the ancient nightmare is not over. It is returning. The pre-flood world was a world steeped in demonic activity, genetic corruption, spiritual pollution, and societal decay. It was a time when the boundaries between the heavenly and earthly were violently torn apart, unleashing horrors that nearly extinguished the human race. Christ's warning reveals that in the final days, our days, those same conditions will once again rise from the depths. The influence of the fallen, the re-emergence of the Nephilim spirit, and the global deception they foster will intensify. This is the culmination of their hidden agenda, a dark resurgence that mirrors the days of Noah, but on a far more catastrophic scale. And this is why they labor so fiercely to keep the truth buried. Because if you understand the pattern, if you see what's coming, you might awaken, you might resist, you might reclaim the authority they fear most. Awareness. If the days of Noah were irrevocably marked by the profound corruption of all flesh and the horrific creation of hybrid beings through forbidden unions, how does this ancient, terrifying pattern manifest itself in our technologically advanced, morally ambiguous, and spiritually confused contemporary era? The unsettling answer lies hidden within humanity's escalating obsession with transhumanism, radical genetic manipulation, and the relentless, exponential rise of advanced artificial intelligence. Transhumanism, redefining humanity and the divine image. The relentless, audacious pursuit to transcend natural human biological limitations, to merge man with machine, or to fundamentally alter our very biology through sophisticated technology, directly echoes the Watcher's original sin of blurring divine boundaries and illicitly enhancing or corrupting flesh. The unholy ambition to create a post-human, or an entirely new species of human, pushes humanity towards an unprecedented existential precipice, mirroring the Nephilim's abominable existence. This is not simply about progress, it's about fundamentally altering the very image of God in man, a direct assault on the Creator's design. The desire for immortality outside of God's divine plan through technological means is a profound spiritual deception that could lead to unforeseen consequences and spiritual bondage, genetic manipulation, playing God with the essence of life. Our unprecedented and rapidly advancing ability to rewrite the very code of life, to create biological chimeras, to fundamentally alter human DNA, or to design human beings with specific traits, is a chillingly precise modern parallel to the forbidden knowledge illicitly shared by Azazel. We are now venturing into domains that were once exclusively divine, playing God in ways that carry profound spiritual implications, potentially opening entirely new doors to forms of corruption of the flesh that could manifest in monstrous ways. The ethical lines are blurred, and the spiritual dangers are immense. Artificial intelligence, a new vessel for ancient influence? The creation of increasingly sophisticated, potentially sentient artificial intelligence that can autonomously learn, evolve, and potentially control vast global networks of information and infrastructure raises profound questions about consciousness, ultimate control, and the very nature of the spiritual realm. Could these burgeoning artificial entities, or the expansive digital realms they inhabit, become new, fertile avenues for ancient, disembodied spirits, the lingering Nephilim spirits, to exert influence, to perpetrate deception, or even to actively seek embodiment, fulfilling their long-held, desperate desire for a physical form? The temptation to merge human consciousness with AI, to upload the essence of the human soul into digital frameworks, fundamentally challenges the divine design of the human soul and opens humanity to unimaginable spiritual perils. Furthermore, the widespread moral depravity and spiritual apathy that so thoroughly characterized the pre-flood era are frighteningly and undeniably mirrored in modern society. The increasing normalization of cruelty, the pervasive rejection of absolute truth, the brazen glorification of perversion, and the widespread global embrace of deceptive ideologies are all chilling echoes of a world ripe for cataclysmic judgment, much like in the terrifying days when the fallen angels brazenly walked among men and the monstrous Nephilim brutally ruled the earth. The ancient spiritual forces unleashed by their original cosmic fall are now more active, more cunning, and more pervasive than ever before, meticulously preparing humanity for a final, decisive encounter with divine justice. They desperately want you to remain ignorant, blind, and complacent, utterly unaware of their ancient unfolding schemes that are now reaching their terrifying and inevitable culmination. This is their ultimate strategy to control, deceive, and ultimately claim your soul. The truth about the fallen angels, their audacious rebellion, the destructive forbidden knowledge they imparted, and their lingering insidious influence is far more than mere ancient history. It is a critical and urgent piece of the prophetic puzzle. It is a buried truth that once courageously unveiled, fearlessly exposes the true, relentless nature of the spiritual war perpetually raging around us and powerfully reveals the ancient, repeating patterns that are now inexorably reaching their terrifying climax in the end times. Understanding this profound reality is not just about acquiring knowledge, it is about cultivating profound discernment, maintaining unwavering vigilance, and ensuring your ultimate spiritual survival. If you feel compelled by these profound and often unsettling revelations, if you seek to equip yourself with the hidden knowledge they tried so desperately to bury, and if you are determined to stand firm and unyielding in the face of the intensifying spiritual battle that surrounds us, like this video to help us spread this vital, unvarnished truth to even more awakened seekers around the globe. Your engagement directly empowers the light of truth to relentlessly break through the pervasive darkness. Leave a profound comment below with your insights, your personal revelations, or what truly shocked you most about the real fallen angels and their buried truth. Share your discernment and join the conversation. Share this video widely and urgently with friends, family, and your community who desperately need to awaken to these profound and often unsettling realities before it is too late. And of course, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you are immediately notified and never miss any of our next deep dives into biblical mysteries, ancient texts, and urgent prophetic truths. The unveiling continues. The buried truth is now fearlessly revealed. Be warned, be discerning, be prepared.